Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. It's listener questions time. I'm very excited. My name is Taylor Rockwell, and on today's episode, we're talking where to sit at football matches. We're talking Gold Cup format changes, B teams, and Graham's favorite topic, Wales. Graham, how excited are you, Graham Ruthven, to talk about the Welsh national team at yet another major international competition?
Oh, it's excited as always. That question feels like a trap for me.
It really does.
Personally.
It's my favorite about how we manage to get, like, once every month, I feel like there's a mention of Wales that somehow leads to Graham saying, Wales. So I'm excited that we get to have that once again. Graham, you're welcome for that. Joe Lowery, is there a national team or a club team that makes you feel a similar level of antipathy, or are you mostly just pretty neutral?
No, I think I'm pretty neutral, but I will happily hop on board Graham's hating Wales train. Like, I don't know. I need to channel that energy somewhere. Why not join forces with Graham?
And it is just kind of a bitterness, right, Graham? It's not that you
100%.
just like the Welsh. It's just that they keep going to tournaments and Scotland does something not quite the same.
It's happened again. The Women's Euros is happening right now, and they're at that tournament, and we're not, despite the fact we've got better players. How do they keep pulling this trick off? I don't understand it. You've set me off already, within like 2 minutes.
Well, I've done my job as a fill-in for Ryan Bailey, and I'm proud of myself. We've got some great listener questions. I'm very excited for the first one. I'm very excited for all of them, but the first one especially from Michelle Frank. Less of a question, more of a request. My 10-year-old listens and re-listens to your show every day. I'm sorry for that, Michelle. And he is having a rough morning with the tough San Jose Earthquakes loss this week. Can you give him a shout-out and remind him that being a sports fan can be tough sometimes, but it can also be great? I think he'll hear more coming from you. His name is Miles. He's been listening for years. Thank you for all that you do. Yeah. Graham, since we've already gone down the painful pathway, do you want to talk about pain as a Scotland fan / Welsh hater?
Yes, I feel like I'm quite well versed on this as a fan, not only as a Scotland fan, a Scotland season ticket holder who went to Germany at the Euros last summer and saw his team embarrassed with the whole world watching, but also a Stirling Albion fan. We finished 38th in the Scottish League pyramid last season out of 42 teams. Woo! So that gives you a good idea of the sort of pain that I experience our season starts again on Saturday. I'm enthusiastic right now. I won't be on Sunday. Well versed on this subject. My perspective, though, is, and look, obviously I would have this perspective given the teams I support, but you can't enjoy the good times without the bad times. So 3 seasons ago, Albion actually won a title. It was remarkable. And that joy was so much better because of having to go through the bad times. I don't know, I just think it's boring to support a team that wins all the time. I have friends who are Celtic fans. They've won 12 of the last 13 titles in Scotland, and they're miserable. Like, genuinely, they get all upset about stupid things like referees and the media, and I just don't envy them at all. And Scotland as well. Like, one day we will qualify for a World Cup. It will happen at some point, probably not for 2026. And when it does, I will be... Like, I'm not an emotional person, generally. Sport brings it out of me. I will be a sobbing mess the day that Scotland qualify for a World Cup. Whereas when England do it, because they do it all the time, I mean, Ryan doesn't even watch their qualifiers. It's like a polite golf clap at most. So it's almost like...
we've battered Andorra by 25.
Yeah, exactly. It's boring. So I just think in the bad moments you are storing up like what the emotion of what it is to be a fan. And I think that emotion then comes out when you enjoy the good moments. So that's how I would... You're kind of like earning your stripes in those moments is how I'd look at it.
I'd agree with that. I would criticize Joe for his impression of Ryan for presuming that they would add seasoning to food.
No. I chose salt because that's the only seasoning they would add.
Yes, of course. Joe, would you like to talk about the pain of sports fandom, or would you like to talk about how it's an okay time to be a San Jose Earthquake supporter?
Actually, I was going to do both. I'll toss
there
both
in.
The Quakes did get bounced in the Open Cup last night as well, which is unfortunate. But you can't win them all. We can't win them all. Actually, that was not last night based on we're recording. It was earlier this week when they were bounced in the U.S. Open Cup.
Good catch.
Quarterfinals. The Quakes are on an awesome rebound right now. Like, I would be hoovering up Quakes stock. In fact, I am doing so if I can find someone who will let me redeem it for actual money at some point. They are the best attacking team in Major League Soccer right now based off of expected goals. They are also the second worst defensive team in MLS based off of expected goals allowed, but they're so much fun, and they're so clearly better than they were last year. Bruce Arena is up to his old tricks, like bringing in good MLS players and identifying that Hernan Lopez is not that guy and getting him out of the club. They've done a lot of really savvy stuff when it comes to their roster build. Bo LaRue is like one of the best MLS players alive, and that seems unlikely, but it's been so much fun. So I think now is a great time to be a Quakes fan. This is not the year where they're going to win trophies. Now that they're out of the Open Cup, that possibility is off the table, unless they have an incredible MLS Cup run. But I think it's at least a year too soon. It might even be more than that. But the Quakes are on a path to be a team that needs to be taken seriously, and that just has not been true for so long. As far as the pain of being a sports fan, it is universal, Miles, unless I suppose you choose to support Celtic, in which case, as Graham said, you'll find other things to be sad about. The two moments that stand out to me most in my soccer fandom era, because I started doing this stuff at a stage where I hadn't been a soccer fan, a pure one, for so long. So I've had fewer moments of disappointment than Graham, but I still have had them. The first one that comes to mind for me, actually, when I thought about this question, is the 2018 USL Cup between Phoenix Rising and Louisville City. This is Didier Drogba's Phoenix Rising, an era that I still cannot believe happened. They lost that game, and it was sad. I remember watching it on my floor, as I do from time to time, just absolutely propped, two pillows behind the neck, good angle, nice and close in front of the TV, absolutely locked in, and being very disappointed that Louisville City had done it. Louisville City always does it. Phoenix Rising had not won a title at that stage. They did end up getting a title a few years later. So success does come at times if you support a team that kind of takes themselves seriously. Not if you're a fan of some other USL teams, perhaps. But that is one moment of acute disappointment. And the other one, the one that will be more recognizable to far more people, is the U.S. not qualifying for the World Cup in 2018. That was not great. I will say you can sort of draw a weird crossed over domino trail between that loss and me sitting here doing this show right now, because that loss is, I think, the thing that kind of scuttles the Athletics' plans for covering the 2018 World Cup and kind of created a crack for me to crawl into and end up doing some writing for them on the analysis side through the tournament. And that is what leads me to TSS, and now I'm here talking about soccer. So
it's not positive for American soccer.
I mean, absolutely. I don't think you can look at that as a negative across the board. It's clearly a win for everybody, definitely not just me. So losses happen. There are tough times. I've been sad probably more often than not as a sports fan in my life, but Graham's totally right. The lows make the highs feel higher.
Absolutely. Yes, as a Richmond Kickers supporter who also likes DC United and Manchester United and was here for Kuva as well, yeah, it could be tough. It could be tough rooting for the sport that we root for. And I think finding the kind of threading the needle of being disappointed and frustrated by your team when they don't get the result, but not letting it ruin your day is what you're going for, I think. To be able to wake up and go on about your kind of business the next day and still feel a little bit bummed that they didn't win, but also optimistic for the next game or optimistic for what's to come is the ideal, because you're going to lose in life. You're going to have losses and setbacks, and I do think sport is great for that, both playing it and being a fan of it. It kind of prepares you for that, and it teaches you that through no fault of your own, things might not go the way you want them to, but you have to kind of endure and persevere and keep going with it. And so I think it's a great lesson that Miles is already learning, and a lesson that we should all continue to learn. But it does then make those wins, as Graham and Joe have already outlined, that much sweeter. It makes those moments when there are successes and when things are going well that much more enjoyable, but you also live through the bad times and you live through the bad moments. And there will come a time when everyone is sharing. They're like, oh, remember that game? Remember how bad that was? And Miles now has one of those. So in that way, it can be a little bit positive. You have that more shared communal experience, even if it's sad. A huge part of it is that you have other people around you who also feel that sadness and that disappointment, and you kind of create those bonds in fandom more than you ever would otherwise. So, I think it can be disappointing. Losses are no fun, especially when they come in a moment when you thought maybe this is going to be the moment. Maybe they're going to break through. But that's when you kind of just keep going with it, keep persevering, keep enjoying your team, and hope that Bruce Arena finds a way to make them do Bruce Arena things, which is win.
Well, it's not just that Miles has actually picked an MLS team on the rise. It's also that Miles has impeccable taste in podcasts. So I think across the board, things are coming up aces for Miles at the moment, just between those things, really.
There's a win coming for us at some point. The TSS losses have been hard.
We can reinvest that Ryan Bailey money. We'll get there.
All right. Well, let's move to a different one. But thank you, Michelle, for the question request, comment of sorts. Very much appreciated, Miles. Thank you for listening as much as you do. Corey Day, thank you for listening and for your question. It is, I need help settling a friendly debate with the better half. We cannot agree which seats are better. I prefer sitting behind the goal a few rows up. She prefers center line or close to it as low as possible. Tonight we were first row behind the net with all the action at the Minnesota United Chicago Fire Cup match, and she is still not convinced. What is your preference for seats? Joe, for you, I'm assuming it's the commentary box in an air-conditioned booth?
Yeah, if you think we have an air-conditioned booth, I got a treat for you.
Do you
my
not?
usual, no, we are outside, ladies and
buddy.
gentlemen. Yeah, my usual seat at Phoenix Rising games is center line, which is great. We are at the top of the stand, which is not all that high, so you're pretty close to the action. And standing alongside Killing McClatchy, and we have a great time. I sweat through stuff, and it's great. We have fun. I think my answer is far closer to Corey's self-proclaimed better half than to Corey. I think the midline is 100% the correct way to be.
As low as possible, though?
That's the thing. That's
the wild
exactly
bit.
that's the issue I was going to take with this. Is I want to be able to actually see more of the game. And I feel like the closer you are to the field level, the harder time you have of actually enjoying that experience and getting to see most of what's going on. That's why I'm at the midline in the first place, because I want to be able to turn my head one side to the other and be able to see the whole match. Like, I think if you're behind one goal, you don't really get to see the whole match, or at least you don't get to see it well, because you're just so heavily tilted towards one side. So you're going to see that side better and the other side worse. I would rather be in the middle and have that balance and have a really good feel of how the game's going. And to do that, I don't want to be quite as low as possible. I want to be like at least a few rows up. In Phoenix Rising Stadium, that's really all it is. But at a larger stadium, like, I don't know, 10, 20, halfway up, somewhere along those lines. The only thing I will say on Corey's end, I can be sympathetic to this if you're in the supporter section, in which case it's like a totally different experience and you're there probably for something a little bit different. And that is super admirable as well. I have zero issue with that, would have enjoyed that, will enjoy that. But my own personal preference is to be in the middle, like kind of in the middle, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I can totally understand the centre line opinion. To be as low as possible, like, that seems wild to me. And whenever I see, you know, American stadiums, they'll have like those VIP suites at the side of the field. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
That's quite an American thing. You don't really get. Well, I haven't really seen it in Europe. I don't know about the rest of the world. You certainly don't see it in the UK. I also think that looks like the worst view in the house, like being behind the advertising boards in those. Even if you've got like a pool or whatever they have in NFL private suites, that's not where I want to watch a soccer match from. But yeah, I can understand being a bit higher at centre line because objectively that is the best view of the match. But it depends on what you want from the match, because if I wanted the absolute best view of a match, I'd watch it on TV. So that's not really how I judge like the match day experience. So I always like splitting the difference between what Corey says and what his better half says. At Scotland games, which is the best, like that's the big like match experience that I have, because Stirling and Albion don't really have a choice of where to sit. You just sit in the stand and that's it. But at Scotland games, I will sit kind of at like the corner flag,
That's
halfway
my
up
man.
the stand.
Bravo.
Maybe slightly shaded towards the center. You know, if I have to pick one side of the corner or other, it's slightly towards the center, the halfway line, because I feel like I have a good view of the field to actually watch the game, but then I also get some of the emotion. Players always celebrate at the corner flag, so you get that emotion of maybe the supporters section, and so I think you get the best of both worlds, and that's where I sit.
100%, Graham. That's where I am. That is also informed by that's where Section O sits for the Kickers games. That is where the kind of supporter section is located at Richmond Kickers games. But that's where I started doing that, is I like to sit behind them and a little bit either to their side one way or the other, because you're then in amongst the atmosphere. When the Kickers score, the flares go off, you get to experience that. But I also am not going to be a person who's down there singing every song. It's fun to do that occasionally, but I also like sitting with the family. I like watching the game at times. And so I don't want to mess up the atmosphere or be the one in the supporter section who isn't screaming and singing. So I like being near that, so you get the atmosphere, you get some of that kind of vibe, and you get the celebrations and the like, but you can still watch and sit if you want to and enjoy the game that way. But I think when you move closer to midfield, I will remember this from going to Besiktas games, but the first game we went to, we sat closer to midfield in that area, and that's where a lot more of the people who arrive 10 to 15 minutes into the game would sit, and where it was a bit quieter. And then you look over at the supporter section that's just raucous and flags and flares and tifos, and you think it might be fun to be in there, but maybe not in the middle of that. And so edging closer to it, I think, gives you two great perspectives. So maybe that's the way to do it for Corey, is to split the difference and go somewhere in between the two and see if that works out well, which is, I think, marriage in a nutshell as well.
Yeah, that might be that's an analogy in itself. That you maybe, unless you are one of these hardcore fans, which respect to you, you maybe want a view of the flares rather than me at the Slovakia-Romania game where I somehow ended up in amongst the Romanian ultras behind one of the goals. Like, how did this happen? Nobody warned me. UEFA did not warn me that I was going to be in this section. Still have no clue how that happened, but it was enjoyable to a point that I had to evacuate because of the smoke in my lungs.
Graham, you already have a history of being embroiled in Eastern European conflict. I don't know why being stuck in the Romanian ultra section is a huge shock
on brand
to you after the Bosnia incident. It fits you, man.
It did.
Graham Ruthven-esque? Is that what you'd have to be a Romanian ultra?
I like it.
All right.
I think he's their number 9, actually.
I had the blonde hair, obviously, from the 98 Romania squad as well. So.
Oh, that was quite the look for them. We're going to take a break. We'll come back with some more listener questions back soon. Welcome back, everybody. We continue to answer your listener questions. Here's one from Richard Rolson. Since CONCACAF chooses to do Gold Cups every 2 years, could CONCACAF make changes to differentiate the competitions? I promise we do have some listener questions coming up that don't require me reading quite so much, but this one does, and I'm good with it. Changes, such as having 16 CONCACAF nations, but then expanding the invitation nations from 1 to additional 8 teams. This could allow 3 from Asia, 3 from Africa, 1 from Oceania, and 1 from CONMEBOL or from other combinations. This could allow for a different name, such as Invitacionala. Nope. Can't even get it twice. Norteamericano. This would make it more unique, easier to market, and would allow opportunities for stronger competitive teams in the tournaments. Is this possible? Would it be beneficial? I have no idea if it's possible, because who knows what is even allowed anymore with FIFA and what Gianni Infantino will let you do. I'm assuming as long as he's allowed to wet his beak in some way, then things are more possible. But I do love this idea overall, and I love the idea of doing one iteration of like the kind of just CONCACAF teams, and then the next one you have an expanded invitational thing, or it's CONCACAF versus the world, or whatever it might be. Because I think with an expanded World Cup, you're going to get more teams who have been on the verge of going to a World Cup getting to go, but that doesn't really move up smaller nations. And I think if you allowed for different routes of qualification, if you had teams that were like it wouldn't even have to be geographic. If you had teams that are ranked at a certain ranking, they all play qualification and one of them gets to go. Like I think there are ways that you could do it that incentivize like more competitive results within CONCACAF itself, but then also give you more competitive games when you get to the tournament. I think it would be very, very fun. Joe, how do you feel about this idea?
Yeah, I think it's a really fun idea, and I kind of like it. I like it and I don't like it. And the reason I don't like it, I'll start with this, is because I'm just kind of against soccer continuing to expand forever. Like, I don't know that we really need that to happen. At the same time, the Gold Cup could benefit, I think, from this idea. Like, I think it is a clever idea to gather some of the countries from not UEFA and probably not CONMEBOL as well, like the two most powerful confederations, the one with the most talent and the highest concentration of talented countries. I think it's actually a very clever idea from Richard to band some of those together and to help differentiate the Gold Cup a little bit. Maybe it's not every Gold Cup, maybe it's every other Gold Cup, so you kind of end up with that special tournament every 4 years, and then you have the Gold Cup every 4 years, like alternating each other, Olympic style, summer, winter. I think this is quite fun. And I think there's a legit way to make it work as well, because we've already seen guest teams in the Gold Cups before. We got Saudi Arabia this time around. We've had Qatar before. This is super possible from that perspective. This would just be inviting more guest nations, unless FIFA were to somehow apply some pressure and say that they didn't want this to happen, which I suppose is a possibility. But in theory, I think there is a way to make this work, especially given the timing of the other continental championships. AFCON is also every 2 years, like the Gold Cup, and they have some overlapping summers, but AFCON's also kind of gone back and forth between summer and winter tournaments. But it does appear that they are trending back towards summer and hoping to do that more consistently. So that could be a challenge. You could do Asia. The Asian Cup is in the winter, right? Generally speaking, it's held every 4 years as well. You could probably get New Zealand over to play. You could even potentially get some CONMEBOL teams to come and play. This feels a bit far-fetched to me for reasons I said already. But based on their calendar, they'd be coming in hot after World Cup qualifiers, at least for the second Gold Cup closest to the World Cup itself, which maybe is a bit awkward and not super appealing for those nations. But I think it's a cool concept that would make this tournament feel unique in a way that the Gold Cup doesn't really feel right now. And generally speaking, better competition for the U.S. would come along with it, and that is a good thing too.
Yeah, I do believe the Gold Cup needs to do something different because it's in this weird no man's land at the moment, which is always exposed to me whenever I speak to someone over here about the Gold Cup who most of the time haven't even heard of what the Gold Cup is, and I have to explain it to them, and they're like, what's the Gold Cup? And I explain it as, oh well, it's like CONCACAF's Euros, and then they'll say, oh, so it's a big deal, and I'll say, no, it's not a big deal. People don't treat it as a big deal, or most of the time they don't treat it as a big deal. So it's this strange tournament right now, particularly since the introduction of the Nations League, which feels like it is, it's drunk the Gold Cup's milk, and the US and Mexico and Canada treat that more seriously than they do.
Not milkshake? You're going just milk.
We didn't get milkshake over here when I was kids. It was just milk, and even then Thatcher stole that. So it's this strange tournament. I don't know whether I'm on board with this idea. It would be interesting. I just come back to like the purpose of a tournament. You guys know that I beat this drum over and over again with tournaments. I don't really know what the purpose of this tournament would be. But then the Gold Cup actually does have a clear purpose. It's just that people don't take it seriously enough. So I don't know how you fully fix that. Yeah. I just keep coming back to this this belief that I've got that where the US and Mexico and Canada and the strongest teams from CONCACAF want to be in the future is emerging with the Copa America, which I've said I think is a possibility in the future. It's probably not going to happen in like even the next, I don't know, like will it happen in the next 10 years? I'm not sure. But there's a partnership between CONCACAF and CONMEBOL. Obviously, 2 Copa Americas have been hosted in the US in the last decade alone. I think that's the attraction, because obviously the counter argument is, well, why would Brazil and Argentina want these teams in their competition? I think it's because the USA in particular is like the ultimate events hosting country. And so that's sort of the attraction, and that's where I want the US to be 10 years plus, is in a Copa America permanently, rather than this. I think
that is a better solution if the goal is to improve the US's international standing, right? Which I think is a part of this. That's obviously not the Gold Cup's primary duty, but I do really like that idea, Graham, and I would prefer that to this concept. To go back to the Gold Cup and the importance of the Gold Cup, heard on the Nations League thing, where the Nations League has taken a bit of the Gold Cup's thunder away. But, like, only a bit, right? You could have asked those same people about the Gold Cup a decade ago before the Nations League existed, and they still wouldn't have known what it is.
It's just
right?
that you don't have the first teamers there anymore.
That's more what I meant, yeah. It's not like everyone over here is tuning into the Nations League semi-finals, like the CONCACAF Nations League semi-finals. I meant more just like it's the best teams playing the Nations League over the Gold Cup.
Sure, yes. Although, really, let's remember, that is kind of only a U.S. thing, and that is now past, effectively, because the Nations League has been shifted out of the summer, right? They were back-to-back before. That's been changed. Now the Nations League finals are coming up in March. And the U.S., Pochettino wanted to have his first-choice group, or the group that he thought is his first-choice group this summer. So I think that is a thing of the past. The point that I'm trying to make is that the Gold Cup has problems, and the Gold Cup is not a notable competition, and it wasn't a notable competition before the Nations League existed. Yeah. And the reason for that, the reason why it's not especially notable globally, is for the same reason that the Asian Cup is not especially notable globally, or that Oceania's championship, or like all of these next level confederations, it's because they don't have a lot of great soccer teams playing in it. Like, it is a hard sell to sell Qatar versus South Korea as a matchup. It is a fairly hard sell.
Not to me.
Yeah, not to Graham. Well, and you also watch Gold Cup games, Graham. It's a hard sell for most to sell them a U.S.-Guatemala game. It is not a prestigious competition because the teams that play in the competition are not prestigious, and that's the whole thing. That's the problem. That is why people don't know more about the Gold Cup. That is why more people don't care about the Gold Cup. So I do think that this solution from Richard would help a little bit, because it's something different. It would get more high-quality teams into the competition, even if it's not super likely to happen, because logistically this would be very difficult to pull off with communication across confederations, all of those things. I think the issues with the Gold Cup are clear and are unlikely to go away anytime soon.
I still like it, though, all the same. I'm into it. And, Graham, what if we make Scotland an automatic invite?
Sold.
There we go. See, I had a feeling that's all it would take. But, yeah, let's do – I'm good for a unified Copa America and for the U.S. to get knocked out. But I think Joe has nailed it at the end that, like I mean, they could make a quarterfinal.
This is Taylor Rockwell from 2 days ago saying we should have hope. I do believe.
Yeah, hope's good. But no, like I think you're just correct that like there isn't like who is the most appointment name ever in CONCACAF? Like who is a player, Graham, that would make Europeans be like, yeah, you know what, I'll watch their national team play.
Zero names.
From CONCACAF.
There's nobody with that strength
right?
of quality. I mean, Pulisic and maybe Chicharito are the closest. But
and even that is sort of like, yeah, maybe. Like I just think that it's the lack of like strength in national teams. It's the lack of names with national teams. So I don't think you're ever going to appeal until that changes. And so I don't think that changes until you get more competitive teams and more money spread around. And that is kind of what the Gold Cup is theoretically meant to do. So too is the Nations League. But, let's get Scotland in there and see what happens. Scotland and Sweden. And I feel like they'll be contesting the final at some point.
Do we have to qualify for this tournament? Because that's historically been a problem for us as qualification.
Invite only, Graham. You're in, pal.
Yes.
Counterpoint. Yes, you do have to qualify.
We're invited, but we have to play every single game in the desert. In
3
Arizona's
p.m.
famous
in the
desert.
desert. Yes, you do.
Perfect. One more. I really like this one. I think it's an interesting thought experiment from Ian Brady. When TSS thinks about a B squad, is it the players that would start if your 11 A players were out? So players 12 to 22 on the roster? Or is it the group of players after the ideal game day roster of 18 has been selected, so players 19 to 38, or maybe even players 24 to 46, those not being invited for the initial 23 camp roster? Or is it something else entirely? A lot of permutations here, but it boils down to, Graham, what is a B squad in your mind when you think of a national team?
Don't pick apart my language. I say what I want, and I don't have to be held accountable to anyone. No, I personally think, look, this is one of these things. We're all going to have different answers on this now that we're examining this. I personally think of the players 12 to 22 when I say a B team. Although back in the old days of like B team internationals, which were a thing, I don't know if the US had that, but like we did and Scotland had that, it was more like players 19 to 38, as Ian says. Mm-hmm. But when I think of, like, we've been throwing around B and C team during the Gold Cup, and if we are being a little bit more pedantic about that, it would be more applicable to say an A/B/C team, because you have like Chris Richards and Tyler Adams, they're part of the A team. You've then maybe got B team players like Tillman and Luna. Then you've got C team players like maybe, I don't know, Damien Downs and Luca De La Torre or whoever, a few others as well. So yeah, maybe we should have been talking about an A, B, C team at the Gold Cup.
Joe?
Breaking into Sesame Street here.
I am team try not to use letters to describe teams for the exact reason that Ian asked this question. Because I honestly, I think if you go back through and comb the tape, I have tried to avoid using this because it's confusing. Dude, and it's hard to know what people mean by it.
Grind the tape, and there is from 2 weeks ago, Joe said this golden generation, which is an A team, is not as competitive as I would like them to be, and maybe we need some B/C players from the silver generation to come in and
there
make
we go.
it better.
And that was on Y-Scout.
That does sound like me. That sounds like something that I said. Oh, man. I was hoping you wouldn't comb the tape, Taylor. I think I try not to use this terminology because it's confusing for exactly the reason that Ian gets to. When I do use it, I'm pretty much Team Graham. Like, B in my head is kind of most of the first choice guys aren't here. Maybe a couple are, but most of them are gone. And so 1 to 11 is largely not present. I think by that logic, this summer's Gold Cup roster then was effectively a B roster. Maybe like a... I don't even know if you can go B+ because you're missing so many guys, and that's too close to an A.
I'd go the other way. I'd say B-.
Yeah, see, again, like, all this to be, it's like kind of stupid. Like that, it's so hard to parse what people mean by this, and I think it's like just
do you mean
way...
soccer in general and the discourse around it is sort of stupid, or do you mean this particular question?
Clearly, if we all mean slightly different things by the same thing, we should just find a new way to say that thing. So I don't think it's a great way to communicate the idea of how strong or weak a team is, even if it is like a shorthand, it ends up being a longhand at the end of the day.
So what would you do then, Joe? Like, because I don't fully disagree with you.
The U.S. is missing all sorts of key players this summer. They're not at full strength. There are a couple of players that do figure to be a part of Mauricio Pochettino's plans, but it is mostly an audition for the World Cup squad from all the players that are filling those
That's
vacancies.
definitely longer.
It's longer, but we just have spent 3 minutes talking about what a B team is, so it's not really longer at the end of the day.
Time is money, Joe, and
I mean, it's an interesting question for me, because I see the merits of all of them, but I do still think ultimately I agree with Graham. A B team is that kind of like second tier if you don't have. it just gets confusing really quickly because, like,
Yeah, that's
is
what I'm
Johnny
saying.
Cardoso an A, B, or a C team player? It can be really confusing, and then, like, depending on the team that comes in, maybe they're elevated to like an A team level. So I think Joe is probably right that ultimately it is a crutch to oversimplify the conversation that you're having because nuance can be difficult and confusing, and
Johnny's
it's easier
a
to have
tricky
the
one.
shorthand. But I think for the purpose of the question, I would say a B team is 12 to 23. But I would say that at the same time, like, using that as a way to talk about a team sometimes doesn't allow you to get the subtlety and nuance of the individual players and the individual positions. So I think Joe's point is ultimately well-founded.
I think Johnny is going from a B team player to an A team player. He's joining Atletico Madrid
From
Betis.
Betis.
So-
Well done. That's exclusively the way I'm going to do this from now on.
Do you like that, Taylor?
Graham, your dad energy
No,
only
that I
comes out sporadically, but it did on that one. That's just the dad joke level stuff on your part. I'm proud of you.
Thanks.
And by the way, I'm not against crutches for describing things shorthand. Like, I think that's super helpful. Time is money. Like, there's only so long these episodes can be, practically speaking. But it's just, I like to use good ones.
Is there one that annoys you the most, Joe? Like, for me, it's knowing that a writer has to find different ways to talk about a national team. And so when they
it's
go
tough.
to the Red
Stars and
Devils.
Stripes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. When talking about Belgium or the U.S. respectively there. Yeah, I think the usage of the nickname as a way to not have to say the national team again starts to bother me at a certain point. That's one. For sure.
When you're back in dipping for the third usage of that
Yeah.
nickname, like in as many paragraphs, I also agree because it's so easy to see. Like, we see through you. Like, you're trying to make it less repetitive, but now you've just distracted me as the reader, and so you've kind of failed your goal. I don't know if there's any like verbal things along those lines that don't make sense. I guess one thing that was always confusing for me along the vocabulary line is like what the channels mean in soccer. Like, people always talk about playing balls down the channels,
Yeah.
and finally I realized like that doesn't mean anything. Like, it
can
kind of
mean
just
anything
means
you
the
want it to
space.
be.
Yeah, it means whatever you want it to be. Like, effectively, it's just a space between two players, and I was like, well, that's not helpful at all.
We had this conversation a long time ago, Joe, because I think
I believe it.
used that, and then I was like, wait, are channels and half spaces different? And I think you were like, yeah, because half spaces are a thing and channels aren't.
Yeah, like one of them's describing an area, and the other one's like not really describing anything. So that was like a real wake up call for me when I realized that I didn't have to think about channels anymore. So that was good.
World class is the one for me. That's everyone has a different definition, and
Yeah.
I will occasionally use it because I have my own definition of what it is. But then other people, I'll hear them describing like a Scottish Premiership player as world class. I'm like, okay, this has just lost all kinds of meaning. So that's not my favorite.
It is weird. Like, stuff does become sort of universal in its usage, I think. Like, Joe, if I say a team is narrow, I think at times that you've been like, what do you mean by that? But if I say a team is narrow, what are you picturing then?
Like a narrow defensive structure, probably. Like, I don't know, something that doesn't go
The
very,
channels are
very
empty,
wide.
I think.
Channels are empty. Okay, but then if I say a team is compact, right?
Compact, maybe more like compact between strikers and defenders. Like, their lines are narrow rather than their width is narrow. I don't know.
Yeah, but like it's a weird one where, like, you know what I mean when I say it, but at the same time it can be sort of used interchangeably theoretically. It just doesn't get used that way. Like, I think that is an interesting part of the way we talk about the sport is how stuff becomes, I guess, like common usage, even if it takes a minute to be like, wait, why is that common usage? And there's stuff that when I say it to my wife, she will say, like, I don't know what that means. That doesn't make any sense. And then I realize, like, you're right. That doesn't make sense. Like saying B team instead of A team. So thank you, Ian Brady, for bringing that one about. We're going to take a break so that Graham can prepare to talk about Wales. We're going to come back and do that and talk about the USMNT one more time. Back soon. Welcome back to the Total Soccer Show. The next one from Pete T. Without Gareth Bale, does Wales make the 48-team World Cup? I'm going to go to Graham for this one, but I'm going to give you my TLDR or TLDL. It's going to be tricky for Wales, is my shorthand answer. Over to you, Graham.
I mean, they probably shouldn't, but they will, because that's just what they
That's
do.
just how it is.
That's just how it is. I've made my peace. No, I haven't made my peace with it at all. It still makes me. You
don't seem like you're very
bitter.
peaceful.
As I scratch the back of my head. Yeah, in angst. I would say probably not, because they are in a qualifying group with Belgium, and there's only one automatic spot. And
Hey,
I
they're
made this
way ahead of them right now. I don't know what you're talking about.
Definitely don't.
Belgium
have
are.
two games in hand.
Was it like?
No, Wales are way ahead. Wales are in second right now. Belgium in third. Well, Belgium have only played the two games, so
Correct.
that might have something to do with it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I watched Wales' game away to Belgium, and they pushed them all the way. They lost 4-3. They were 3-0 down in that game. They pulled it back to 3-3, and then they lost it in quite late in that game. And this isn't the Belgium team of a few years ago. Like, Wales could beat them at home, which would then blow the group wide open. But I made this point about UEFA qualification. I hear people saying, like, oh, it's really easy for European teams to qualify for the World Cup. It's really easy for, like, England and France and somehow Italy continue to botch it over and over again. It should theoretically be easy for them. See if you're a tier 2 team like Wales or Scotland, as we've experienced since 1998, like, really difficult to qualify for World Cups. In the last World Cup qualification campaign, we won, meaning Scotland, we won 7 out of 10 games and lost 1 away to a very strong Denmark team and didn't qualify for the World Cup. So Wales can have a good campaign and not make it to the World Cup next year. But I just look at how previously, I mean, the thing that made me bitter about Wales in the past was really the last World Cup qualification campaign, the one that I've just mentioned, where we just did have a better team than them. We had an excellent campaign. And then they had this Gareth Bale guy, and they scored 3 goals in the playoffs. All 3 of them scored by Gareth Bale. They went to that World Cup. We didn't. And so they had this attacking difference maker, this world-class attacking difference maker, comfortable using it for Gareth Bale, he was for a period at least, that we didn't. And most national teams didn't. And he was a crutch for Wales. Obviously, he's now retired, doing punditry on the Club World Cup, as he was last night. But they still have, like, Brennan Johnson's he's not Gareth Bale. I'm not trying to make that argument. Brennan Johnson is still I like him a lot. He's still someone who's going to produce for Wales in the attacking third. He scores in that game away to Belgium. Even Harry Wilson is capable of coming up with something out of nothing. That's sort of the player that he is, and he's scored big goals for Wales. So I really wouldn't rule them out from making the next World Cup because I've made that mistake before. And they still have those players that, unfortunately, looking at Scotland, just to draw that comparison again, we still don't have those attacking players that Wales do. So that could be the difference again.
Scott McTominay can do it all. How dare you? Here's why I think it's tricky for them. And you said it's difficult for that kind of like the next tier down, not the B teams, to make the World Cup from Europe. It is tricky. It is also tricky because the pathway to doing so has gotten even more confusing than ever before because you have your groups. First place automatically qualifies. Second goes into the playoffs. But then there are also spots in the playoffs for Nations League winners and Nations League rankings. That's where I get a little bit confused because my assumption is that Belgium will end up topping this group. They're in Group J with Belgium, Wales, North Macedonia, and then Kazakhstan and Liechtenstein. I don't think Kazakhstan and Liechtenstein are going to be too big of problems. I think Belgium go through top. That leaves it between North Macedonia and Wales. North Macedonia are top currently. Both Macedonia and Wales have played 4 games apiece. Macedonia drew Belgium and drew Wales. I think both of those were home for them, so who knows what happens on the return legs. But either way, so I think Wales will either finish second and go into the playoffs in that way, or they'll finish third. But at that point, I think they would go into the playoffs because of their Nations League rankings, where they are either 7th or 19th in the table. I'm a little confused about the rankings. I think they are 19th overall, but 7th based on winning their group. So I think that would put them in as one of the best third-place teams who didn't qualify directly.
Easy to follow.
Right, totally. And that would make them a pot 4 team, which means that they're getting basically a home and away semifinal game and then a final that they would have to win. So then they'd have to beat 2 more teams. And again, that's just where it becomes more of a crapshoot. It depends on who you draw, and it depends on how good you are. And if you can
pat your head and rub your stomach at the same time, you're through.
Yeah, that gives you a bye, I think, is how it works. So all that to say, it is a winding road. Their best way of qualifying is obviously to finish second, and even there, you're still into the playoffs. So it is tricky no matter what. I do think that they have plenty of quality. But Graham, I felt like comparing the Scotland team to the Welsh team, the Scotland team looks much stronger in my mind, even with the attacking options. So maybe this gets to your point of frustration. I'm sorry. When Wales beat Scotland in the playoffs to make it to the World Cup, is that going to be like the thesis statement for you?
Yes, that's the day that I stopped being a soccer fan. Thankfully, we were in the same playoff bracket, but we lost to Ukraine before we met them. If we actually have to face them and lose to them with a worse team, That'll make me sad. I don't know if I'll recover from that.
Joe, any more thoughts from you on this one while Graham attempts to recover from the theoretical possibility of losing to Wales in World Cup qualification?
That's enough for me.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a good sheep tie-in to all this because it feels like that should be the key to Wales doing just about anything. Coming up empty on that front. The TLDR, basically to all this, in a direct answer to Pete's question, we think the answer is probably no. Wales does not make the 48-team World Cup.
That is about where I am. One more question from Raymond Salmon. The U.S. is ranked 16th in the FIFA World Rankings. They sure are. However, this U.S. Gold Cup team surely cannot be the 16th best team in the world. What realistic ranking would you give the 2025 U.S. Gold Cup team? I think recent results versus teams and their corresponding rankings gives some clues, even going back to the pre-Gold Cup friendlies. It's an interesting one because I think the senior A team would not be ranked 16th in my estimations, but then this
they're
Gold
15th
Cup team
by FIFA now. As of today, FIFA has dropped a new batch of rankings, and the U.S. moved up a spot from 16th to 15th.
Yes,
yeah,
success.
Top 15 team in the world. Pochettino era, a huge success.
Are they still ranked ahead of Mexico?
I will tell
no,
you.
Mexico went up 4. They're 13th.
Thank goodness. Okay,
But
Which
they're
is
ranked ahead of
absurd.
Uruguay,
absurd.
Japan, Senegal, Switzerland. They're ranked ahead of Switzerland. If only there was like some recent evidence, like to dispel that idea.
Okay. Come on. All right. So let's go with the premise of the question then. Joe, looking at the rankings, which are obviously totally valid and make a ton of sense, where would you rank this U.S. Gold Cup team in terms of world rankings?
Yeah, where I landed is that this Gold Cup team, in all of its letter alphabetic glory, lands somewhere in the 40s or 50s on the planet.
Okay.
Now, I'm curious what Graham's going to have to say to this, because I think Graham has the most global perspective of the three of us on this question. But here's how I kind of thought about it. So some teams in the 40s, in the official FIFA rankings updated as of July 10th. Venezuela are in the 40s, Paraguay are in the 40s, Peru are in the 40s, Costa Rica are in the 40s. In the 50s, Uzbekistan, Mali, Qatar, Cameroon. I think that this Gold Cup U.S. team can hang with those teams. We saw it against Costa Rica, right? And they're, I think, ranked a little high, maybe like a lot high in the FIFA rankings. But I do think that is about right. Now, you also run up against some teams in the 40s and 50s that you think maybe belong a little bit higher, all things considered.
Yeah.
You have Nigeria ranked 44th in the world. You have Scotland ranked 47th in the world. I don't think that this version of the U.S. team does well against Scotland, right? I think they probably they don't win maybe like 6 out of 10 games if they match up against each other. Maybe it's more than that. But I think once you hit the 40s and 50s, if you get much past that, most teams start to look imminently beatable. Honduras is 66th in the FIFA rankings. I think that 40s and 50s is about right. And I think the first choice U.S. team, I know that's not what this is about, probably is a better fit for somewhere in the high 20s at the moment, which is a lot lower than FIFA has them.
Yeah, I think the more conventional A team for the U.S. is probably in late 20s, early 30s. It's really confusing because I wouldn't have put this Gold Cup team as low as Joe did, but that's because there are teams that like you could skip by, like Panama in 30th. Like this U.S. team probably beats Panama, right? So that's a little confusing.
Didn't work out that way in March. So
there is that. So I mean, yeah, it does get murky. But then to your point, Joe, like I think the senior Scotland team, the A Scotland team, beats this team from the United States 9 out of 10 times. I truly do. And I think when you look at the senior team versus the senior team, I think it's maybe Scotland winning 5 or 6 of those games. Like I just think that there is more talent there and there is more stability, I guess, or like consistency, even if that consistency isn't always covered in glory. So it's I would have put them like late 30s, I think, but I can be talked into even lower down the rankings. Graham, where are you on this one?
So in terms of like the Gold Cup team, the way I worked this was, who's the first team that I come across in the FIFA World Rankings right now that I feel good the US will beat them, and it was Qatar in 53.
Wales.
Like the Wales, I don't even know where Wales are.
31.
Probably number 1. I haven't looked.
31, 6 points ahead of Scotland.
31 puts them. Well, that's got to be like 16 places
16
ahead of us.
Never mind, my bad.
Yeah, I mean, Wales are definitely a bit too high, and we're probably about where we deserve to be honest. But, yeah, like, even then, Uzbekistan in 55th place, like, I'm not going to pretend I've watched a whole bunch of them, but they've qualified for the World Cup and they seem to be on the rise, and they had a good like Asian Cup, so I think that would be a competitive game. But yeah, Qatar was like the first team in 53rd that I go, okay, this Gold Cup team beats Qatar. Whereas if you go a little bit lower, like Slovakia, I don't think they beat Slovenia. Like, even just for Jan Oblak and Benjamin Sesko, like Slovenia made the knockout rounds of the last Euros. Romania as well. Obviously, it's a different equation entirely if we're talking about the senior US team. And Taylor, I broadly agreed with your point about Scotland. I think it would be, honestly, right now it would be a roll of the dice between those two teams because we're both in a pretty bad spot at the moment. But talent-wise, it's comparable.
It's so funny. I really do think that you all, like, I know what you mean when you say that you all are in a bad spot. It does not seem that bleak to me. I mean, maybe that's a Club FC perspective, but there is plenty of talent in that Scotland team that I would happily take for the US.
Oh, for sure. It's just we're not playing very well at the moment. We just got beaten 3-0 by Greece.
Mauricio Pochettino, that's all you need.
That is all you need, yeah. He'll bring his lemons. But yeah, my answer is, I think, similar to Joe, like from 40 to sort of like mid-50s is where I'd place them.
Yeesh.
The Gold Cup team.
That's a little bit bleak. What about for the A team, Graham, that we've all decided is what they're called? If you're bringing that like first choice 11, what is the number now for teams that you feel like the US would beat?
I'm just looking at the rankings now. I can't really remember. Joe, did you give me? Like, I would say like mid-20s to late 20s.
I think that's where Joe was.
That's right where I landed as well. And it's like they're firmly in that tier of teams where they could honestly end up being a bit lower than that on their day, where there's other teams that could push past, or they could occasionally push higher. Like Mexico being 13th in the FIFA rankings is a joke, right? Like the US being 15th is nonsense. The US, just for context, is 45th in the ELO ratings right now, which are a different form. It's used in chess to give a rating to a player, used in soccer to give a rating to a team. They're not run by FIFA, but they do equate. Well. Right? Yeah. Oh, absolutely. A huge ELO fan. Absolutely.
Yeah. Are you now really? Because you should be.
No, I'm not. But I'm not against the idea of being
Mr.
a huge ELO fan.
Don't bring
what I
down.
will say is the ELO ratings don't factor in like the fact that the US didn't have their full strength team this summer, and don't factor in the absences before that in the friendlies, which I imagine don't do wonders for their score. But yeah, the US, it's up to them to prove that they're better than like the tier of teams that they're in right now, and that's been the task for them since 2022.
That's a very evil woman response of you, Joe. And this is a living thing that we're talking about when we're talking about rankings. I'm just doing ELO songs now.
Yep. And I got that. I understood that.
You both did based on your blank expressions.
That's my look all the time.
I've seen ELO live, and yet that still went over my head. But I'm on board now.
If I could have anyone's singing voice, it would be Jeff Lynne. I mean that sincerely. So there you go.
He's great.
Who knew that this is what it would turn into? Joe, it sounds like you would put more faith in the ELO rankings than you would maybe the Coca-Cola FIFA International World Cup rankings sponsored by Target.
Yeah, I mean both are trying to do an extremely difficult task of rating teams that barely play each other in one giant table. But generally speaking, I would lean towards the ELO ratings than the FIFA ratings. Yeah.
Joe, in your opinion, just scrolling through, what's the most like ridiculous one? I think Australia being 24th has to be quite high. I mean, like the cum dog is still playing for them.
That's wow. Good poll. Yeah, that's high up there. I mean, Mexico 13, US 15 is pretty hard to beat as far as like just outlandish rankings at the moment. They've got to be. Yeah, they are my top picks for this.
Yeah, is that just because there's just not the evidence? Like, we all know that like the US have better players than Mexico right now, but we just haven't seen it in a result or on a pitch.
Yeah, I mean Mexico. Are you talking about why Mexico rated above the US?
Yeah. Like, what's the like?
I would assume the win on Sunday has a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
And I think those obviously the results are factored in heavily here because that's the only thing that they're actually going off of. But I think we all kind of know that Mexico are still at sort of a low ebb when it comes to their talent right now. I said it multiple times on that review show. Like, they're not a super dangerous team. They dominated the ball in that game against the U.S., and they still didn't create a ton of really clear-cut open play chances. And that was their best unit, and it was, the U.S.'s Z team. So, take that for what it's worth.
Peru at 42, given that they're already eliminated from qualifying and 9th in CONMEBOL qualifying right now, for them to be ahead of Paraguay, Venezuela, to name just two. That one feels pretty high for them, but it's a weird one though, because I still think If you're then putting them up against the U.S., I'm a little bit nervous. And if you're putting them up against the U.S. Gold Cup team, I am very nervous. So I take your point then. In the end, I think I was more optimistic. I think I would have said 33rd in the world for this Gold Cup team, and now you all have talked me into dropping them into the 40s or so.
Yeah.
I mean, 33rd is Norway, who have,
Yeah, there's
the
just
goal
no
ball.
chance.
They
and a
weren't
couple others.
33rd when I did my rankings. I think I didn't adjust for the day.
They are now.
Yeah, they are now. I would definitely put us behind Norway then. I think I had this Gold Cup team. I did do a spreadsheet.
How about
behind-
Russia 35th still? Like, what? They've not played a game in about 4 years. Which, well, I guess they've not lost a game, so maybe they've cracked it. Maybe that's what you need to do.
Did Norway? They're up 5. Why did I had them very low in what I thought was the FIFA rankings from the other day? Yeah, I had us behind Mexico, Senegal, Switzerland, Denmark, Norway, Turkey, Sweden, Austria, South Korea, Ecuador, Ukraine, Australia, Serbia, Egypt, Scotland, and Iran. And then I think it was like that was where we got into like Costa Rica and Panama, and I was sort of thinking, well, that one gets a little bit trickier, but all the same. Congratulations to the Coca-Cola World Cup rankings for having us way too high. The gold standard of this, though, is when the U.S. was, what, 6th, I think, in like 2006?
Sustainable.
That felt real. That felt obvious.
Yep.
But most importantly, congratulations to Wales for being unequivocally the 31st best team in the world, significantly better than their Scottish counterparts. Graham Ruthven, thank you for being one of those Scottish counterparts and for answering all of the Lister questions that we answered today.
Thank you, Taylor Rockwell. You've now got me looking at the historical chart for the US. They were 4th in April 2006.
Yep.
So,
And
absolutely high.
lived up to that billing.
Yeah, I don't remember 2006 that vividly, but it seems high. Yeah.
Oh, we won it. We won the whole thing.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't fact check that.
It was
Definitely
actually
breezed through our group. No problems at all.
Yeah, it was actually Steve Cherundolo that Zidane headbutted in the final in 2006. Everyone's got it wrong, and it wasn't Marco Materazzi.
There's a multiverse out there where that did happen. Thank you very much. We don't live in it. Maybe one day. Joe Lowery, thank you for answering some Lister questions with me today, my friend.
Taylor, you'll never be on my B team. You're always an A team guy.
Thank you, my friend. Even though I know that you hate those rankings, it means a lot to me. It certainly does. You will never be in the channels, Joe. You'll always be in the half spaces. Listeners, thank you all for listening. Miles, thank you for enjoying soccer and supporting San Jose once again. And we'll talk to you all next week.